All right, good evening and welcome to the Milford Board of Selectmen meeting for April 9th, 2018. For the purposes of reorganization, I'll look to Town Administrator Rick Villani to take nominations.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Buckley. At this time, I would seek nominations for the election of a new chairman for the Board of Selectmen.
I'll make a motion for Mike Walsh. Mike, if I can, I would just like to let the viewing public know in the audience that you and I have had the opportunity to work together for the last year, as well as years on the school committee. It's always been a pleasure, and I know you'll do a great job, so I gladly make the motion for you as chair. Thank you.
And with that nomination, I will second that, and glad to see Mr. Kincaid's election, and congratulations to you. And I'd also like to welcome Mike Walsh to Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. So with that, we'll take a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you. I as well would like to congratulate Will on your re-election to the Board of Selectmen. And you're right, we've served together for a lot of years, and it's a pleasure to be chairman.
Thank you, Mike.
I'd like to say thank you to the both of you for your support. It means a lot. Thanks to Rick and Jean for your help through the past year as the first year and the member of the Board of Selectmen. My plan is to, next meeting, out of respect for Chairman Kincaid, tonight's agenda is really his agenda, though I am chairing the meeting. I will make a statement, an opening statement at my next meeting, next Board of Selectmen's meeting, because that'll officially be my agenda, and that is my plan. And so with that, I'm going to open up the meeting, and the first agenda item is signing of the warrant. Can I have a motion to accept the signing of the warrant?
I'll move, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that.
And I'll vote in favor as well. And the next is the approval of the March 26, 2018 minutes from the Board of Selectmen.
Moved, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded?
We'll vote in favor of that. Next agenda item is invitation to speak. Is anybody here for invitation to speak? Okay, not seeing anybody. Move on to our next agenda item, which is public hearings. Our first public hearing is Fun Zone LLC, doing business as Pins, the incident on February 17th, 2018.
Actually, not a public hearing.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
For the record, Joseph Antonolis, I'm an attorney practicing in Milford. I'm here on behalf of Pins of Milford. David Green, who is the manager of the establishment, is to my left, and obviously you're well acquainted with Chief O'Loughlin, who's also here. And it's my understanding that the board has some concerns about an incident that took place a month ago at the facility, and I would just like to report to you that Mr. Green is very cognizant of his responsibilities in maintaining proper decorum in his facility with the liquor license. He has one of the more sophisticated card readers available in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that allows him to monitor underage drinking, takes it very seriously. In addition, on busy nights, he has sometimes upwards to 4 doormen there. I think that's a term that is sometimes used, the word bouncer. But we don't like to use the term because generally we don't feel as though we have that type of situation where people have to be physically removed from the presence of the facility. On one particular night, we had an incident there where a young woman from the town of Milford was assaulted by another woman. I'm gonna leave the names out of it. The police report and everything is certainly available for those who have access to those sorts of things. It's my understanding from a review of the police reports and what I can see that the woman who was assaulted was injured. She received some serious cuts above her eye, multiple stitches. Again, my client takes this situation very serious. There is an ongoing videotape that is running all the time at the facility. That tape was immediately turned over to the Milford Police Department, and I think it was Officer Pavia who viewed it with my client, who watched the entire incident. I'm not here to testify, but in summary, I can tell this board that I too have watched the video, and for a period of what seems like 15 minutes or so, there are group of young women sitting at their, some circular booths that are off of the bar area. And they're very close to the bar. There's probably, maybe 8 or 10 feet between them. And so there were multiple young women in these booths, and apparently they're all having conversations. And at one point in the conversation, one of the women gets up and becomes assaultive and abusive. And at that point, David's doorman actually went over to the woman and sort of corralled her. And I believe, because there's no audio, that they were probably instructing her that her abusive behavior was such that she would leave. As they were manipulating her, so to speak, without being physical, she kind of maneuvered herself around the back of one of them, walked past him, picked up a bar stool, and threw it at the woman that was hurt. And so, while we understand, again, that liquor and these types of things are not what we want in the town of Milford, we don't want these kinds of situations. Apparently, from what I could view and what David viewed, and what the chief will tell you, that there was no ongoing rabble-rousing around this group of women. They appeared to be having a conversation. The police reports indicate that the women all knew each other from high school. Some of them probably hadn't seen each other in a while. And it appeared to be a conversation that went awry for reasons I'm not aware of. But at any rate, I don't think that it was anything that could have been predicted or prevented by any further kinds of supervision that was there. If you were to watch the video, we would see for the entire period of time that the women are all together, there are no drinks being served. So it's not as though people were running back and forth and drinking shots or anything like that. Those types of things that I think that the board knows can lead to this behavior. So we're at a loss to explain why it happened, but I am here to tell you that I think my client acted responsibly and cooperatively, both in attempting to prevent any further altercations and also in cooperation with the Milford Police Department. And I'm sure the chief can tell you if I'm wrong in that assumption. But it's my understanding from the situation. Again, David has a long history here in Milford as an owner-operator, and I'm going to say that I think he tries very hard to keep the activity level there. As you know, it's a place with not just food and drink, but there's amusement going on, bowling and other kinds of things. So there's a lot of activity, but again, I think the facility was properly staffed, and I'm asking that this board look upon this as just a situation of being an unfortunate incident and not one that was related to negligence on the owner. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, even before the chief talks, I just want to say, because you did mention to folks, excuse my voice, you did mention to the folks that this was my agenda item. The reason this isn't a public hearing and it's a scheduled appointment was just to have you guys ignite. A lot of questions came to me via email. I remember having a conversation with the chief up in Rick's office. I just wanted you to come because I heard you were very cooperative and that you handled everything well. And I just wanted you guys to come in and give the public an opportunity to hear you first and foremost. So I didn't want people to watching thinking this is anything.
Right.
This is not a public hearing. This was, you were invited and you accepted. And I just wanted to leave it at that. So it was a very positive reason to have you in. Sorry, Chief.
Rather than go back through the whole report, I think that was extremely fair and accurate summary of what took place that evening, to the point that the information that Attorney Antonellis is probably not aware of, it was the staff, those same staff people from Penn's that kept that young woman there until the police arrived, and then she proceeded to attack the officers. So that's why she ended up in handcuffs, and her friend who attacked the officers was able to scoot away, and she was summoned into court. So Detective Pavia did have the opportunity. He went and watched the entire video with Dave Breen. They did give us a copy of it, and everything that Joe Antonellis said is exactly what Bob Pavia said to me.
And up to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, it's not a hearing. I'd just like to echo that. It's not as though your license is at risk or suspension or modification. But having said that, I appreciate what I've read in the report based on the employees' response and even their willingness and ability to help the police officers. I often look at cases like this, and I wasn't there, I didn't view the video, so for starters, I look at it and say, you know, there isn't always a way for employees of an establishment to predict the behavior of patrons. And from everything that I've been able to read, it looked like the employees acted reasonably and responsibly. And the only question I had was for the chief, frankly, and I appreciate the account that you provided. I don't have any questions of you. It strikes me, not being a police officer and not knowing the statutes, that both the assault of the individual patron and the assault of a police officer are misdemeanors. And is that accurate, or?
The assault on the police officer is, unless you seriously injure us, but where she used the stool
Yes.
as a weapon, that's where you see the assault and battery dangerous weapon.
Oh, okay, that's further down. Okay, because it says,
The assault is where the other young lady, I think, took a swipe at someone.
okay, wrong person.
Right.
Got it, thank you.
But
So,
you'll see the serious charge of mayhem, which is, mayhem is you disfigure someone's face, or you remove a limb, or you, so real serious
Okay.
charge,
'Cause
given
it-
the injuries.
it struck me that this crime or account were serious enough in nature. And I know as well as the patron owner, all I can say is, you know, I can hope that individual recovers and recovers without, you know, permanent scar. It's a terrible thing that happened. And Chief, if I'm not reading this right, just if you could help me understand for the benefit of the public too, to what extent the staff helped out the police officers.
Within the reports, and I also talked to one of the officers that was there, it was Elias Giokas and Tony Dennis, and I spoke with Elias. Essentially, when the officers arrived, and this girl, she wasn't going to be cooperative.
Right.
And, the staff from the establishment had her pretty much corralled until they got there. She then fled over behind Tokyo, and that's where she engaged the officers. She wasn't going, and then her girlfriend jumped in, and et cetera. They were pulling people off, you know, the other woman off of them, and then they were keeping others from the ability to interfere with the
Keeping the crowd
officers.
back.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I know that's a particular area of concern for police officers when you're engaged with someone and somebody else is jumping in.
It's not fun to have someone jump on your back.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a losing proposition. But I think, you know, one of the other important factors is the call came in from the staff, from the employees. So it wasn't someone that was a bystander made the 911 call. It actually came into us from them. And that's fairly common, as you know, for a number of establishments. For PINS, you know, the doormen there, the security staff there, they don't hesitate to call.
And in this case, the video didn't magically disappear, but in fact, video was available for your review and available for any future court cases, which is enormously helpful. I know
sent
in
detectives
other
down, yeah.
cases, sometimes the video's gone by the time you get there, so.
Dave's
so
always given
we
us video, so it's.
Yeah, so I
even
appreciate
for
that.
things unrelated to them. You
Yeah.
know, where a suspect went into their place, who we were looking for, and, you know, was he there, who was with him? They've always been cooperative.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any more questions or thoughts. I appreciate it.
No, and again, I'll just follow up with saying thank you for handling it the way you did, and we appreciate your staff acting as they did. And thanks for coming in today.
Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good to see you. Joe, take care.
If I may, gentlemen, I'd like to just jump out of order a little bit, only because the chief is already here, instead of keeping up late at night. Chief, if you could, under old business, the report on the panic button incident.
Yeah, first, I want to apologize. I know that it was on the agenda last meeting, or the meeting prior to that, and when I was here, and I know that there was a lot of other business you were taking care of, so I let it go because I thought you wanted to let it go, so. The panic button for the schools has been up and running. That was a beta site. There were 2 sites, town, city, in the country. And that's why they provided that service to the Milford Public Schools at no charge. So they'll never pay a fee to have that system put in. Their commitment, because we were willing to work with them as they finalized development, was that they would put panic button here at Town Hall. It's taken literally a number of years because we had to finalize things over at the schools. The system, as we unfortunately found out in a difficult way, is ready to roll out. We're ready to implement, to do the training, to implement. What took place was we finalized that. Sergeant Jim Herron was here meeting with the town administrator and one of the assistants in his office, believing that the system, when you go to activate it, if you cancel, it's canceled. That's what took place. Well, the system's more robust than that. This system has dual notifications in it. So what takes place is you have 5 options. You have your active shooter, you have a police emergency, fire, EMS, or a non-emergency button. So in this case, he canceled it, so it never went to 911. But over on this side of that program, it sends out a text message to everyone that is in that, quote, campus. So if you are on a board and you had your name listed, the 66-odd people that are listed there, or if you're an employee in Town Hall, that's going to text out to you because the system's designed so that you can react instantaneously to help yourself and others while 911's being notified, because you always run the risk, the person calling 911 might not have the ability to speak out of fear for their own safety, that someone who's doing bad things will recognize where they're hiding, or they may be incapacitated and they can't. So the other folks would still be in jeopardy, not knowing that something was taking place. So it's unfortunate that we didn't get to come in and do the training that we want to do so that people understand that this system, there's multiple features. By way of example, just this past Saturday, an employee came here to Town Hall, and we had entered the, not just panic button on your cell phone, but the actual landline number, so say 2303. And she locked her keys in one of the offices. And she went over to one of the conference rooms, which happens to have the same number as Mr. Villani's office. However, the only number you can dial out on that phone in that conference room is an emergency number, or within Town Hall, the 63422, whatever, 3, et cetera, right, the extensions. Well, so she called 911 because she needed to get Carlos or someone to come and let her into the office so she'd get her car keys and finally go home. When she did that, I jumped out of my skin because it sent me an alert. And it said, there's a non-emergency call coming from 6342303. And then once the dispatchers received that call and they entered into the call log what it was, an employee at this particular office has locked her keys in the office and she needs someone to come and help her out. So that's what came over in the second text. But at least on my phone, when the alert goes, it's like an ear warning. It's loud and it really rocks your skin. So I can fully appreciate now, having experienced it actually 3 times, because we had one initial implementation at the schools when we did the final test. It can be disconcerting, and I don't question that. And it's not our intent to cause anyone any kind of angst or the rest, And in each instance, once I was aware, I jumped onto the notification system and sent out a message to those people. When it happened here at Town Hall, the initial false alarm, they were in the midst of going office to office to say, look, there's no problem. So, what types of corrective things? I hope that the board will support implementing this program for the staff here at Town Hall. It's an incredible safety feature. We intend on bringing people in from rave, so that they send staff in, training staff, and they will with the police department. So we'll train the staff on use and the implementation plan, so that, look, it's active, you know, so if you use it, you know, don't be fearful to use it, but if you use it, you know, sometimes what you did isn't correct. You know, there's human error, there's, you know, technology, but we want to train, and then we want to train them in what do you do in an emergency situation? What do you do in a stressful situation? How do you react? You know, what can one person do while the other's checking out to see what's going on? And then the active shooter training that we've done in the schools, as you know, Mike. And I think, I don't know, Will, if you were on the school committee then, but we brought in, I mean, over 600 employees and did the training. And before we did it, we met with, there were a number of staff people, and we met with them and their union representatives to have a discussion, because they were apprehensive, you know? We worked through that. I wasn't surprised that, you know, Dr. Tremblay's commitment was to do that training every 2 years. So when 2 years rolled around, I wasn't surprised when those same association representatives were going to Dr. McIntyre saying, let's get this going. We have to do training again. There's a number of new employees, you know, and even some of the other staff are looking for it. So, you know, it's essentially, to put it in a nutshell, you know, there's the Alice method, there's a number of different things. Basically what it comes down to, it's flight. If you can get out, get out. If you can get out safely, get out. And then if you can't, you got to figure out how you're going to hide, and if need be, how you're going to fight. Because if someone's going to take and try to hurt you, you have to be prepared to take care of yourself. And we can do that training, you know, floor by floor. We can show them, you know, just different avenues of escape. And so we've been looking at this building, as you know, from one nook and cranny to the next. As we have the library, I met with the library staff. They had their staff meeting just this past week. As I said, you know, we're going to have some false alarms, and you want to minimize it? Absolutely. You know, I think the way you minimize is you show people, this is how this works. There's kind of a dual system that's taking place. And then from there, if you do have the false alarm, how can we react to it quicker? So I went on to the rave notification system, and very much like Mr. Valani has, where you notify the employees that town hall will open 2 hours late because of a snowstorm. So it's a template, so you just go in. If you, the people that in this building can jump right on. They don't, no apprehension about doing it. Rick, Liz Fernandez, the town clerk, Amy, I think she has trained some of her staff, but I know Amy, the Board of Health, agent's office, that's the staff in there. They can go right onto the notification system, and the template is there. You know, it says, it's town hall, panic button, false alarm. And all they have to do is click it, and then click send. That quick. It's all set to go. So we built in the only, rather the quickest method for us to get out to those 66 people that, I think it's 66, but okay. It's to get out to them that, hey, it's okay. You know, things are okay. So, you know, I appreciate, you know, the concern of the board. Believe me, same concern. When I get the message, I jumped out of my skin.
Thank you, Chief. I'll open it up to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate the explanation. You know, I originally asked for some understanding of what happened, given that, you know, 66 folks got notified that there was an active shooter in Town Hall, some of which weren't in Town Hall at the time, as in case people are doing work in the field and whatnot. And as a result, a lot of people and a lot of families got messages, and some people weren't sure what to do. But I want to go back and focus on the root cause of the notice going out, because I, along with you and this board, know that a system, whether it be fire alarms, panic buttons of any type will desensitize folks if we're in a mode of false alarms. And I wanted to get an understanding of what the actual root cause was. When I do root cause for incidents at work, it's for my management, it's not enough to say it was a human error, but actually what types of things caused the human error. And by the way, it's not a punitive response, it's actually a process response. It's a process question and a process response. So, without having intimate details of what transpired, this isn't a rave thing. This isn't, that is the rave system. This isn't for or against a rave system. But normally I'd see process. And what I'm hoping that comes out of this is that we learn from it, and we translate that into learnings, and that so things like notices go out before people are on the administrative end clicking the buttons. Number one, somebody's working in the system from the hours of 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and whatever the notice would be. And maybe disregard notices that might come out because of inadvertent mistakes. The other thing is, it screams of training, right? Of training that people that have administrative responsibilities within the system, that, if this happens, you're not going to be able to call it back, even though they might think they can call it back. There was a learning there. And I think we ought to take those learnings and, number one, control who administratively can manipulate the system, because there's a need to do that from a test bed fixture, standpoint. And the second thing is, for any of those people that have administrative clearance or authorization, that we give a very specialized training and incorporate those learnings. Because what I look at it as just an opportunity for the organization to learn deeper and better. And then the last thing is, and you've said it in your memo, that didn't happen here, is a follow-up go out to the same number of individuals that got it, saying this was an inadvertent mistake during testing or something along those lines. And, because everybody can imagine what non-police officers, and you have specialized training, but non-police officers might go through, and the angst that might happen in their workplace if they hear that is an active shooter, when in fact there wasn't. So I'm asking, as a matter of process, that something get put together. And when I say organizational learnings, I truly mean that it's not punitive. Anybody that has ever been in a test bed environment, software, hardware, or whatever, realizes there's risk. And if that system is connected live, there's much greater risk. And people could have been injured jumping out of first floor windows, 10 feet up. We could have had other things happening that just snowball. So I hope you take that with the spirit that it's intended, as not criticism, but some constructive feedback to the system, and that at least those three things happen.
Very fair comments. I neglected to say, we limited the administrators to Mr. Valani and myself. So, the only reason I'm in there is because the notification system I administer, Smart 911 I administer, and this system actually comes into the 911 system, so it needed my authorization to do that.
So was this training?
So
there's something, you mentioned somebody else who sent out the message that's not an administrator then, is that right? Or
I'm sorry.
is the sergeant also an administrator?
No, he's not.
Okay.
He was involved in bringing together the spreadsheets, et cetera, for RAVE,
Okay.
so that system could be built on their end. The administrators today are myself and Mr. Valani,
Okay.
the only two people that have access to the system itself. A number of people have access to the notification system. Probably one of the biggest users is the highway department, notifying plow operators, et cetera. So,
Sure.
So even Janice could get on, and she knows how to do that very well. But no, I think your comments are very constructive. I agree with you, Bill, that, and we did limit that, and the training that you mentioned is clearly it's training that myself and Rick, have to sit down with the people from Rave.
Sure.
So we know
That's fair.
the whole infrastructure.
They're experts.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I know a lot about panic button because I was involved in putting it in the schools. I didn't know that a landline, if you called, if we listed the landlines on there, that it would still make a notification. So I was on the phone today to Rave, and they said, well, if you include your landline, the landlines, it's actually a good feature. So
Okay.
we worked it out, but I'll take everything that you said and take care of it.
That's all I have.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, my only concern, Chief, you already acknowledged both in writing and just speaking now, because my phone blew up with all people that are on boards and committees that aren't in the building. So it took a while for everyone to get notified. I think it was quick in here to go, I know Rick and Jimmy went, to every office, but I think by the time they calmed down and then made all their phone calls out. So I didn't get one call from people inside Town Hall, but I did get 3 or 4 from outside, and it did take, and the biggest criticism from those 3 ladies were, it took an hour for them to find out that no one was getting injured in here and someone didn't have a gun. So I think you having that template where hopefully there isn't any more false alarms, but again, we're dealing with human beings. If there is, as long as that same notification go back, I think that takes care of a ton of the concerns.
It went out Saturday in about, I think it took me 4 or 5 minutes because I had to build the template. to Get it out.
It's still pretty good timing.
And, with nerves and everything else, I was like, oh, God. So,
That's all I have.
Chief, I want to first personally thank you and your department for your years of help with us at the schools. A lot of people don't realize that the first year that we did the active shooter training, there were a lot of employees that wanted nothing to do with it because of the fear of it. And the second time that we did it, it almost doubled with people that wanted to do it because of the people that had gone through it said, you really need to get involved. This is really, a program you want to be involved in. And I've spoken about it before in the schools, is that, and you've done it, again, your department, yourself, you've done a great job working with the superintendent, working with the administrators, teaching that if the threat is external, we lock down. Now, the schools are locked down all day long to begin with, but it's tough to keep them locked down. But, you're taught if the threat is external, we lock them down. If the threat is internal, and we have ways of communicating that, and I want the general public to know this, they're taught the flight. Get out any door, window, and just get going, And so, that's very, very important. But the comment has been made, and you and I have had this discussion, well, why can't we lock Town Hall down? Well, how do you lock Town Hall down? Town Hall does business with the citizens of the community all day long. But again, we do a good job of trying to keep not only Town Hall, our library, our hospital, you and I have spoke about that before, is very, very safe. We're working on a program, as we discussed at our last Selectmen's meeting. We're putting together a tactical unit, so it's not that as a community or as a board of selectmen, as a police department, as the fire department, we're not addressing a very serious situation, not only in our country, around the world. So again, I want to say thank you to that, for all your assistance in those areas. And I appreciate you coming in this evening. I just would like you to make sure that, to the best of your ability, something like this and I know it's hard. Well, doesn't happen again. And I know mistakes happen, but this was a frightful one.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So, again, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Oh, you need me to sign the warrant?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Thank you. Next order of business on the agenda, I should say, is the Town Meeting Study and Improvement Committee.
What's that presentation? That's not on the agenda, is it?
It's,
Review of articles?
no, it's,
Hey, gentlemen.
hey, gentlemen.
Mike, how are you? Thank you.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Reno.
Hi, Reno. Mike.
How's everybody?
Good, and yourself?
Reno?
Been a while. I don't know if that's good or bad. It's been a while.
That's good. You've been doing a lot of work.
Oh, please.
Not on the agenda.
Well, they say we caught this elephant, now we gotta figure out how to eat it. Anyway, well, it's good to see you all again, and I'm gonna brief you on the Town Meeting Study and Improvement Committee, which was established by the October 2017 town meeting. Basically, I think we met last on this Town Meeting Improvement Initiative back in September as part of the Citizens for Milford Town Meeting Working Group. And a lot has transpired since then, so I'm going to tell you how we've moved from then to now. The Citizen for Milford Working Group concluded its work by producing the 2017 Town Meeting Survey, which everybody got a copy of, and all town meeting members got a copy of. And they prepared that article for the October town meeting to establish a town committee to carry on that work. 24 town meeting members applied for the 9 committee seats. Like most startups, it took longer than anticipated for the committee to get going. But I'm not going to go through all the startup challenges, and because we'll be here all night. But I can report the committee is well organized and functioning. I was elected the chairman, Michelangelo Bontempo was elected the clerk, and John Edmondson was elected the vice chairman. But he's since moved out of town, he had to resign, so now we're lacking a vice chair, but the committee will deal with that in the next meeting or two. The other committee members are Dr. Richard Heller, Andrea Wexler, Catherine Mastriani, Steve Treadle, Richard Morrison, Bartholomew Lawless, and Joanne Dillon. Now, at the first business meeting, the committee decided to adopt a policy to include the remaining 15 applicants to participate in this initiative for 2 reasons. One, they are the pool from which vacancies are filled, and so if we got them to participate in our work, it would reduce the learning curve when they had to fill a vacancy, and would also provide an avenue for new and innovative ideas on how to resolve some of the town meeting issues. As a result of that policy, six applicants signed up to participate, and the committee was able to produce 6 articles for the May 2018 town meeting. However, in the course of producing those 6 articles, town council advises that 3 of them were within the authority of the town meeting to adopt, and 3 were within the authority solely of the Board of Selectmen to adopt by policy. Also in your packet, I refer you to the scope of work status chart. It's a highlighted chart. And I just included that chart to mainly show the range of topics identified in the survey that the committee is considering. The scope of work statements were also prepared for most of those items to keep the committee members focused, to provide guidance, to document improvement ideas, and monitor progress. So now that brings us up to the May 14, 2018 warrant articles for the town meeting and the recommendations for your consideration in the March 9th letter that's in your packet. So I'd like to go over that letter with you briefly. Item 1 was a standard starting time for all town meeting members. That was a large percentage of the respondents of the survey really wanted to start the meeting at 7 versus 7:30. So that's Article 7 in the warrant. And town council advised us, according to state statute, the town meeting can authorize the start time of the annual town meeting, but not special town meetings. So if we're going to make all town meetings start at 7, then by policy, the selectmen have to set that as a policy. Then the next one is a standard adjournment time for town meetings. We've had experience recently where some town meetings have run very late, and at least anecdotally, it seems that people are reluctant to say we've had enough, let's go home. So this article sort of flips that coin around, that the town meeting ends at a specific time, debate stops at a specific time, and there's a motion that has to be made to continue the town meeting. So if there's one or two non-controversial articles, the town meeting still has an opportunity to continue to finish that evening and not put it off to another evening. Another item that took a lot of response from the survey was to limit speaker time. So that's Article 10 in the warrant. That article basically is modeled after the Framingham bylaw. It's been on their books for a long time. Committee felt it was suitable. It addresses the presentation of the presenter of the motion a little bit more time than the speakers, and there's an opportunity in that article also with two-thirds vote to continue that speaker time. So a speaker can get up. We have a big proposal that needs more time. The speaker can request additional time to present his full motion. And then there's cutoff times for debating. That's in that article too. So we think we got everything pretty well covered there. Item 4 is the consolidation of street acceptance articles. We have, from time to time, 3, 4, maybe, street acceptances, and some communities consolidate all those in one article, and then that's presented as a lump. And then if anyone wants to speak on any one article, they can motion to remove it, and then the rest of it passes, just like we do in the budget, and then the remaining street acceptances are voted on. And that's similar for the routine housekeeping articles. We have a number of articles, the Selectmen's authority to take legal action, the Treasurer's authority to borrow. There's probably 6 of them in this warrant. And when Town Council was reviewing our proposals, that was one of them, to consolidate all of those under one article. And that's happened to show up in this warrant. I mean, I presume you sprinkled holy water on it and you're okay with that. So, but anyway, that's going to be a test of whether or not the town meeting likes that approach, where they're all a lump, someone can take one out, put it aside, vote the rest, and then debate the one that's left on the table. So up to that point, these articles are intended to take some time out of town meeting for procedural stuff, limit debate time so we don't get people up there with 3-ring binders and go on for a long period of time. And so we think that will help take some of the time out of town meeting and minimize the occurrences of the late night meetings. Then the last one is item 7. That's a administrative change to the town meeting article that created the committee in October. It's got to do with the order in which vacancies are filled. An amendment was made that evening to flip the order that the committee had originally set. And looking back at it, we really want to go back to the original language for the reason that there are some projects that we're working on here, some topics, that extend over time. So right now, when a town meeting member who's a member of the committee term ends, which is the dissolution of that warrant at the end of his term, we want that person, if he wants to continue on the committee and not flip to somebody else just because his term expired. So the original motion had that order, and we think it's worthwhile. It's just an unnecessary obstacle for us moving forward and keeping the projects moving in a smooth way. So that essentially covers all of the articles, I think. There's one more, item 6. Setting standard dates for the town meeting. If you look over our recent history, we meet a certain week in May, and we meet a certain week in October. Again, that's an item the town meeting doesn't have the authority to set, but our thinking was that if families want to plan a vacation, if they knew what weeks in May and what weeks in October were going to be set aside for town meeting as a matter of policy, except for extenuating circumstances, which the selectmen can change at any time. I think it would help town meeting members feel more comfortable to be in town at those points in the year, and probably improve attendance too. So that's one article. It didn't get a lot of positive recommendation. It was like a 50-50 split in the survey, but I think it's worth, looking at and considering if you could set, I gave an example in the letter of how that could be worded. Basically, I guess that's all I have. If you have any questions,
I'll open it up to the board.
Could you explain 7 again? I'm sorry. Number 7. For filling committee vacancies, what process would you use? I'm not sure I grasped that either in the memo or in your explanation. I'm sorry.
the original article had the order of replacement for those who are serving to be reconsidered to continue. The second order of priority was
Which committee are we, I'm sorry.
Town Meeting Study Improvement Committee.
Gotcha. Okay. I didn't know if it was a general comment to other committees or.
No, no,
other-
no.
Okay,
No,
all
just-
right, got it.
In fact, this is the only committee
That's
has
the
term.
context.
This is the only committee has term limits. We do. By the way the committee was
Yeah.
set up, you can't stay there forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, we modified it from the original language slightly, is that person who's on the committee can't be reappointed for more than 2 more terms. So we got it set that nobody can stay there forever. You got to get up. I don't think anybody wants to stay there forever, to tell you the truth. But anyway, we covered all possibilities. So right now, it's people working on a project that's going to go, say, for several months, and his term happens to expire here, his or her term happens to be expired, we want to continue on that project, or somebody's got to start in at the beginning or at the middle of a movie and pick up that task. So the original article had it right. The amendment sort of got us off track a little bit. There is one thing I want to do if you don't have any questions now, I'm going to just end up with my closing statement. This committee is only going to succeed if we have cooperation with all the boards, committees, and departments in the town of Milford. I mean, this is covering a spectrum of how everybody does business. And so at some recommendations, it's going to recommend that they change the way they do business to satisfy the town meeting. So we really need cooperation from your board, obviously, most important to keep supporting us. And then particularly the help of the town administrator and the IT department, because we've got to address issues with the audiovisual system and the town meeting webpage development. In fact, the town meeting webpage is going to be probably our most important avenue of communication with town meetings, that and email. So we're going to need to consult with the IT department for that. I understand that Mr. Valani is working on video system improvements, and so the committee is not going to get involved with that at this point in time. He's moving forward on that, and we'll see how that works out. However, there was enough level of satisfaction to the survey in the audio system. If you look at the data, the survey data, there is room for improvement. We don't know what the issues are, probably not the equipment. It's probably the speakers and the microphones and things that we haven't really thought about, but still it shows that the town meeting's level of satisfaction overall could use some improvement. So we're going to look at that. We're going to need Rick's support in that area too, but basically that's what we need from your board and the town administrator and the IT department.
Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate, by the way, I want to thank the study committee, because their sole purpose in life is really just to see what we can do to encourage more participation in our town meeting and legislative process. And for that, you should be, commended. And it's hard to tell whether any one of these or a combination of these things are going to make a difference. But what I would support is the effort to continually evolve and be willing to make changes. There are some things we're not always going to be able to accommodate in your recommendations. And it may depend on what the state is doing with the state budget. But I get the intent and I get the purpose. And so my recommendation without a motion right now is I support it. We can try it. We can try to meet the spirit and, of the recommendations. And it's not an end point, right?
No.
We're going to continually evolve and we'll continually try to make improvements. And, we'll see where that brings us. That would be my suggestion, but I'm interested to hear what the other board members think. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, Bill, to be honest with you, I echo nearly everything you said. A lot of work got done. And with that, I think we should make a motion to support this committee and town meeting. So I'd like to make a motion to adopt a start time of 7 p.m. and items 4 and 5, which are consolidation of street acceptance articles under one article, and item 5, consolidation of routine housekeeping articles under one article for the May 14, 2018 annual town meeting.
I may have some discussion before we move on that motion. First of all, I'd like to thank your committee. I think all of this is very, very important. I think it's something that we absolutely need to do, but the first two are the two that stick out to me. When I first got elected to the school committee, there were nights we were there at 10:30 at night, and you used to say, this is ludicrous. This is, and then you say to yourself, you wonder why people don't want to get involved. To Bill's point, town meeting members, we can't get town meeting members. When I became chairman, I sat down with Dr. Tremblay and I said, okay, 9 o'clock. We start at 7 and 9 o'clock. And I'm controlling the meeting because I'm the chairman. And for the most part, for the 2 years that I was there, we did it. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you got to look at somebody and say, you got to wrap it up. You got to wrap it up. But to expect people to who have been up since 5 o'clock in the morning, worked a full-time job, and then be out at 10:30 at night in town hall sometimes in May when it's 90 degrees with the windows open, it's unacceptable. So I commend you for all of that. I've done the same thing. I met with Rick on Friday, and the first thing I said to Rick was, we start at 7, unless there's something pressing, really pressing, we end at 9. We end at 9. The last meeting that the three of us had, it was very late. And what happens is you get hungry, you get snappy, you make bad decisions, because you're tired. You're tired, and there's no need for any meeting to go that long. And to put term limits on the people that are speaking, time limits, great idea. There's no reason that anybody should get up to that mic and ramble. You can make your point, and a lot of people forget, the shorter your speech, the more accurate you are, and the more apt you are to get your point across to people. When you start to ramble, you're not getting anywhere. People shut you off. So again, I commend you. You committee, great job, and
Well, we hope the coming town meeting
Yep.
goes along with what we're trying to propose too, This is a
understand.
first test.
That's right, that's right.
But the reason we started, Bill, you were a member of that Citizens for Milford Committee, and the reason we started this is because we want to keep town meeting preserved for the next generation if we
Correct.
can. There was an article in the Milford Daily News recently that several towns, Medway and Millis, so forth, got together because they're concerned about the town meeting not getting attendance and not being fully participated. And so they're meeting as a group to figure out what they can do. I think we're ahead of them a bit in this initiative, but and the reason we institutionalize this committee as a town meeting committee reporting to the town meeting is because that body is a separate legislative body, and they ought to have a say in how the town meeting is conducted.
Correct.
And what information is provided to them in a timely manner. We're going to look at the reports that are created in the community now. Again, try to make more of them available for the town meeting members. We have another initiative going on with the town clerk that we have now some 79 town meeting members whom we do not have email addresses. So we're reaching out to them to try to get more email addresses in. I think we're still gonna have a population that the only way to communicate is either through the television or postal service. But we're gonna try to minimize that too, because with technology today, we can improve the availability of information so town meeting members can't have the excuse, I wasn't informed. And at this point in time, to access committee meetings and activities going on in the town of Milford or any community is not easy. I mean, you really got to hunt for it in some cases to find out something you want to learn about. So technology today, I think, can move us a lot farther in that direction, is to make information more easily accessible to the town meeting members so they can make more informed decisions when they get to the meeting.
Thank you.
That's at a 30,000-foot level.
I'm prepared to second this. I think people have been thoughtful in their approach to this. We'll see how it does. Nobody knows empirically how it will work, but we'll try it. So I would second that, Mr. Chairman.
And I would also vote in favor.
Okay?
All right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Did you want to promulgate the start time for the specials too, or you had two, or do we want to do that later on?
Well, you can think about it between now and the October meeting,
Okay.
so. but if
Well,
you-
no, I just want to mention while
The
we're here
intent.
that the point that I took from this is they
Me
should
too.
all be that time.
Me too,
So
and-
should we just,
Yeah, let's do that.
can I also make a motion to promulgate a start time of 7 PM for special town meetings? And item 6, which is the setting of standard dates for the annual town meeting and the October special town meeting.
So can we separate those?
Yeah, we can. Okay, so we want to promulgate a start time of 7 PM for the special town meeting, for special town meetings, excuse me.
It would second that motion.
Take a vote. All right.
Aye.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I don't know how we do.
Right, I think we want to
consistent
get some
dates. It's a
feedback.
practical matter.
We might want to do that.
Yeah,
as a
let's do that at
follow-up,
another
but
meeting.
At least the gentlemen can report to the committee that they're all 7 PM.
If we do a
that's
standard,
fine.
if we do a standard date of May 14th, it's going to fall on a Saturday eventually, so. So as a practical matter, we'll see how that.
Mike?
The problem with that is certification
Yeah.
of free cash.
Not a date,
You want to do a specific date. You do a Tuesday
third
or
week of the
Wednesday.
month.
Like the third Tuesday or something like
Right.
that.
Right, so we do have some challenges. I want to work with Rick on it and have him work with Zach, because some of it's certification of free cash and a whole lot of activities that are happening at the state for the May timeframe. Right, that's a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, under the same agenda, Mr. Carroll, I believe you're here with a presentation for Article 2.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Let me see if I can get this warmed up again. I assume you guys all received the handouts?
Yes.
Which handout is he talking about? Oh. Got it. How long is this presentation?
It's 15 minutes.
Okay, I'd like to start out by first thanking you for having us here tonight. We have two other members of the board here, Jim and my buddy. We have done a lot of work over the last 3 or 4 months in trying to put together this new rate structure. There was some issues that we ran up against several months ago with the hiring of some people where the pay rate was not competitive, and there was some pressure brought to bear to try to correct that. And the board reacted, what I'd say, very favorably to that, and worked diligently to put in place what I think are competitive pay rates now for all salary and hourly positions. So to start out with, we have the recommended strategy for Article 2. The vision statement is to provide competitive wages and benefits to hourly and salary employees that fall under Article 2 jurisdiction. Currently, I'd say there's probably around 100 people affected by that are full-time, and there are many other people that are part-time. The goal is to attract, hire, and retain qualified employees. The objective is to pay a competitive wage and benefits. And I think we're doing a good job at that. The town of Milford, Article 2 salary and salary wages are on average 10% below surveyed communities. We've done surveys for the last 3 years. The last 2 years are included in your handouts. And in looking at those surveys, different jobs had different percentages, but on average, it was about a 10% difference on the salary positions we looked at. And we looked at a salary position in each one of the levels of salary that we have. We have 5 salary levels, and we picked a position from each of those to try to get an understanding of what each salary range should be. There were 13 towns originally surveyed. There was some additional information that was provided by Rick that we incorporated in some of the information and some of the spreadsheets when he looked at the both the building commissioner and the local inspector's position. The results were provided in those spreadsheets. And at this point, if you want to go through those, we can, or I'll just continue with the presentation and we can talk about it afterwards.
Why don't you
Your choice.
continue on?
How did we get here? The current hourly and salary rates were determined based on survey information that we completed in 2015. At that time, we introduced the new rate structure for hourly salary, and the rates at that time were competitive. Subsequent survey information was performed over the past 2 years, and as I said, the details are in the spreadsheets. Available options, we could have left the rates as is, and I believe that's unacceptable, and so do the other members of the board, and I think several of the employees in town. If we want to compete for good qualified employees, I think we need to adjust the rate structure. Implement the new rates and allow employees steps to take place. For those of you who aren't aware and the people who are watching, the way the system works is there were 8 steps established for each salary level and each hourly level. And as the person progresses every year on an anniversary date, generally July 1st, they'd move to the next step. And that increase was approximately 6 to 7%. And then at step 8, they were frozen. And they were looked at on an annual basis to determine whether or not they'd get a cost of living increase. So if we were to implement the new rates and allow employees to take that step, it would have been a budget killer. The cost would have been very, very high. It would have been close to an 8 to 10% increase in what the salary and hourly wages would be under Article 2. So our financial guy, Zach, when he first saw the presentation, came up with the idea that, hey, look, why don't we just take what we have here and skip the step and implement your new rate structure without having them take the step. Well, by doing that, we end up with just an increase of a little over 2% for salary and a 2.5% increase on the hourly. So it was a great idea. I don't know why I didn't think of it earlier, but I'm glad he did. because it does give us the opportunity to implement. It gives everyone a nice increase for this year, and it also adds another step to their journey. So instead of having, if they were on step 3, instead of having 5 years left now, they'll have 6 years left.
So you saying, Mr. Carroll, it's gonna add step 9?
Actually, no, we're
Okay.
keeping 1 through 8,
Okay,
but we're eliminating the step for this anniversary date.
for this July
So
1st.
if they're on step 3, they're gonna remain on step 3. But the rate structure for step 3 is being increased
Okay.
by approximately 6%. So what they're gonna end up with is approximately a 6% increase. So the recommendations, implement the no-step option. This is gonna provide Milford hourly and salary employees with the needed adjustments to pay levels and make us competitive hiring and retaining employees. The support of the Selectmen and the Finance Committee will help to get Article 2 passed with these needed changes. And the Personnel Board will continue to monitor via surveys and compare our wages to surrounding towns to remain competitive. And that wraps it up.
Okay, with that, I'll open it up to the board.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Dennis. My suggestion, Mr. Chairman, is that we meet with Zach and we let the FinCom vet this. There's still some aspects of it that I'm confused by, and I'd like to hear from Zach and hear the review of the FinCom. Are you scheduled with the FinCom to present this?
Wednesday night.
All right. Yeah, that would be my suggestion right now, because I'm not sure of the difference in the step increase in the 6% versus the 2.5. I'd like to talk to Zach a little bit further on that. That's my recommendation. And obviously, we don't have time to go over the entire article with presentations for every article. We don't have the time to go over the warrant with every, with presentations, so.
I have just a couple of questions, Mr. Carroll. The towns that you surveyed, were they like towns to the town of Milford?
It was similar in structure. Some of them were larger. Natick is included in it, and that's a much larger town. I could provide the list. Is it that with you, Charlie, or?
That's not really, and that's, just for questions, like, you didn't compare it to a Weston, to a Westwood, to a?
No.
Okay. So they were towns that were very
Similar
close as
in
you could
nature.
get,
Right.
similar to Milford.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
It's the same towns that were the previous study and the past study. So
Okay.
they've been the same towns that we've been comparing for like over 20 years probably.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I would like to do the same. I haven't had an opportunity to have a conversation with Zach. I do thank you very much for this presentation. I will be there Wednesday night as well.
Oh, good.
So, it'll be nice to see how what the FinCom has to say as well.
I'm sure there'll be lots of questions.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, well, where we just did it, I think, one of the challenges, Mr. Chairman, if I might, is where we just did a salary study and salary action, if you will, within the last 2 years. And
No, it was 3 years ago, Bill.
Or 3 years, sorry. Time goes by fast when you're my age. But that said,
Faster when you're mine.
I was gonna say mine.
I think there was some expectation set at the time that we wouldn't be making wholesale adjustments in 3 years.
I don't recall that conversation.
All right. So
I recall.
I think that will
I
be a
recall stating
challenge.
that we would do surveys and determine whether or not we remain competitive.
Okay, so, and I need to hear more on the step discussion and the 6% versus the 2.5. And Zach, I know, has flushed that out, and I'd just like to have a discussion with Zach, so.
Sure.
All right.
And just one more question, Mr. Carroll. Is this something you're looking to bring to the May town meeting or October?
Yes.
May.
That's the other one, it's the timing.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. Okay, you know what, Rick, I apologize, I accidentally jumped over your report.
That's okay.
So why don't you, back.
Thank you,
Yep.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. 4 items tonight. First, I would like to update the board on the hazard mitigation plan. MEMA, Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, they have reviewed the town's plan. They did make some revisions to the plan, but they have now approved it. FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, is now reviewing the plan. Once it is approved by them, then it will be presented to this board, the Board of Selectmen, for review and your approval. So we are getting closer to the completion of that plan. And just as a reminder to the board, FEMA did approve an award of almost $33,000 to be used to update this plan. I received notice from the Youth Center that they'll be offering a new program. It's called Milford Youth Center Laundromat. And it's a nice program to allow students to do their laundry while they attend a after-school program. This has become an issue at some families. We would like to thank the Wheelock family. They helped donate and did donate brand-new machines, which were purchased from Frank's Appliance. We'd like to thank Frank's also. They did that at a discount. In addition, All Temp Systems Mechanical is going to donate the plumbing work for the installation. And Lisa White has generously donated a gift card to purchase laundry detergent. So it's a nice new program, and the Youth Center is excited about it. I would like to update the board on the local building inspector application process. We did receive 8 letters of interest and resumes for the posted position of local building inspector. Building Commissioner Matt Markart and myself reviewed the applications. We have selected 5 applicants to be interviewed. We will be doing the interviews tomorrow morning. We hope to narrow the field down to 3 names to recommend to the board. A number of the candidates have already been pre-approved by the BOCC, indicating that they meet or exceed the qualifications required for the position. The final item, as mentioned previously to the board, Zach Taylor, Finance Director, Amy Neves, Town Clerk, and myself, we have met with a records management company to discuss a plan to archive the town's records. The first step after these meetings would be to complete analysis and a survey of the town's archives. This would provide a potential course of action to archive the records and will include both cost and potential benefit to the town. We would receive a detailed report with recommendations for proper management and control of documents for all departments. The cost for this initial report is $5,500, which we do have in budget. Once the report is completed, we can then determine if and when to add this type of system to our capital plan. So what I was asking the board to do tonight is to consider this proposal, and if they would be so inclined to approve the expenditure for the initial analysis only. I think if you've been through some of our offices, mine in particular with boxes piled high.
It's time.
Benefits very piled high. Amy's office, the assessor's office, tax collector's office, town council. There's just a number of, and hopefully as part of this, we can get some recommendations and advice as to maybe we can destroy some records. In other words, some records no longer need to be kept. Again, this would just provide a plan, a course of action. The implementation would, my estimation, have to be something to be put on the capital plan due to the anticipated costs. So we have been exploring it. A number of departments have requested it. And again, I'm asking the board to consider this at this time. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Rick, with archive, can you elaborate on what archive means?
Yes, what
Does it
they
mean
will do,
digitize?
yes, what they will do is go through, believe it or not, every box, plus other records, and then they will, when they say archive, either digitize or they will, by way of putting it on the computer, box 24, we'll know where it's located, what's in it, which department it is, and if you've ever been downstairs to our, they call it the jail, the records room there, it's another difficult position to navigate. You need 2 people down there to get the boxes down. So yes, but we will know where every record is, and by instantly going on the computer program, know where to, and how to access that record.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Rick, my only concern is that I don't know what special safeguards exist as it relates to HIPAA information, people's credit card information. With data breaches being what they are, we're going to allow employees outside of town hall with a third-party contract, I'm guessing, access to some of these records that have a great deal of citizen information on them. Right? When we think benefits, when we think healthcare information, when we think of credit cards, people that pay in credit cards. And so, look, there's no question you guys are on track with the archiving of data and records. I think we need two things. One is a policy that puts some guidelines around age of documents by category so that we don't over-digitize records we should be getting rid of.
That will be part of the process.
Yeah, I think
correct?
that needs to be ahead of it,
Absolutely. Yep.
right? Because the mistake a lot of companies make is they pay a lot of money for people to archive documents that should have been gotten rid of. Now, we have a unique responsibility when it comes to town hall and public records. We want to make sure it's consistent with state laws. The other thing is some of our records that we want to digitize and safeguard in the event of fire, water, whatnot, remain of historical value. So, but the big area of concern with data breaches is contracting third parties and giving them full access to everybody's healthcare information. And, I'm going to guess there's a fair amount of credit card information in some of these documents. And we've got to figure out how to do this and do it in a way that doesn't put people's personal financial information at risk or for potential identity theft. We've got to do this again. I want to recognize the work that you guys are doing. We have to do something. I think the board and the community are entitled to a great deal of assurance that what we're doing makes sense and that who we allow access to documents, I think there's some legal concerns that we've got to look at. You know where I'm coming from?
Yep.
Okay.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I think all those are legitimate concerns. I think just to reinforce one of the things Bill just mentioned was, I think prior to, and I use Iron Mountain Network, and it works out great, and I think that's something that needs to be done just from here for the sheer space, never mind the actual document management. But anything with payment cards on it, we shouldn't have anyway. You're actually not allowed to. So a lot of towns and municipalities do fall into kind of having the wrong things and information. But the last four digits of any payment card is all that we should have on any receipt or anything like that in storage. So we probably want to verify that. But I think what you'll find is, especially over the last 10 to 15 years, that's all you should have a record of. I think that's hopefully something we can confirm. But yeah, I think just for the sheer space and things like that digitizing this and just storing it in an insured environment where we can pull it, but it'll also be protected from fire and water, we're past due.
Yeah.
So I'd certainly support moving forward on this.
My recommendation, Rick, is if I was you, I'd reach out to Ed Kelly at the hospital, because they purge yearly.
Sure.
And they're dealing with the HIPAA law, but, they have files that have a lot of people's personal information. See how they handle it. How do they handle the security end of it? When the files are coming down to the shredding truck, is there a security officer? Is there a high-ranking official from the hospital making sure that everything that's coming down is getting shredded? Because if you remember right, wasn't it a couple of years ago there was a little incident at the hospital, some documents? Yeah.
And this
So-
is digitizing of information
Right.
rather than shredding.
Right,
So they're going to put it on computer record.
right.
And the question is, who has access to that record? How many employees? We've got everybody's health care.
Yeah, we put in the protections we have now, only there's very limited access to
Right.
that kind of information.
And there may
I
be
can't
some
even get that
specific state laws.
Again, that's what this company's gonna help us with, absolutely. What can we purge? What state laws do we need to follow? So,
Yeah.
or any company, not
Again,
necessarily this
I'd
company.
also
But
reach
I
out
understand
to-
your concerns.
I'd reach out to Ed Kelly too, and at the hospital, and just say, can you give me some input on this? Do you need us to vote on that, Rick? or-
Not if the board's not so inclined, if they're not letting, if you don't want to go forward with the initial report, then that's all I'm looking for.
I certainly do.
Yeah.
I think that's important so that we can, I mean, I guess, do my colleagues need anything else before we go for this initial report? But that initial report, because I've done this in my own workplace, you need to do that first step so you know what to get rid of, because you don't want to digitize things that you don't have to keep anymore.
Yeah, this is an
And then you
initial
find out,
assessment.
right,
Yeah, this
what-
isn't-
What you have to save for 7 years, what has to be saved for 15, what has to be saved for
We'll
perpetuity.
put together a proposal or a plan that will include
Exactly.
hopefully some, well, I'll make
This
sure it
is the first
concerns
step
concerns
of
you
finding that
gentlemen
out,
have.
yes.
If in the proposal, nobody's going off-site with a document,
Correct, no, that won't happen.
right?
Right.
Nobody's
We're not
being,
awarding a contract.
nobody's being allowed access that might make us not in compliance with state or federal laws, I'm good.
Oh, absolutely, no, that's.
So in the evaluation, I'm good.
Okay.
It's the next step, I think, is where the.
Oh, no, the next
Yeah,
step
that's
is,
when you go up
I'm
to
gonna be
bid.
back
Yes.
to, I'm gonna be back with
Okay.
a number that.
Well, it's not just a number, it's those.
But also,
concerns.
this will give us a proposal and a plan that maybe this board wants to tweak in some respect, or has concerns or questions with, that will get answered.
And what this should do is provide you with a roadmap of what the
That's-
next steps are and what you can actually get rid of.
That's
and
exactly-
Or things you even choose historically to keep, so.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
sounds good.
Then I guess if the board's so inclined, I would take a motion.
I'll move that we go forward with an evaluation of our documents to establish cost and estimates of timeframes.
I'll second that.
Thank you,
I'll also vote in favor.
thank you.
Okay. Any other old business?
Did we have to go over these articles, or are we doing that some other time?
I leave that to the pleasure of the board.
The only thing I would like to bring up, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I did put in front of you a warrant that adds one article, and that article is to authorize this Board of Selectmen to do the takings for the Route 16 tip project, and that project that seems so distant is now approaching. The consultant has spoken with our town engineer, Mike Dean, indicating that perhaps we could do this at this town meeting to get everything in place. I think the board will recall that at a prior town meeting, I think, Bill, I think it was your suggestion, we did already appropriate $200,000 for the takings, which we believe, according to town engineer, would be sufficient. So this would just be the second piece to really put us in place to move forward with this Route 16 project. Like I say, 5 years ago seemed so distant, and now it's fast approaching. So other than that, if the board's so inclined, I would request a motion to approve this warrant and then a signature.
Just a question, if I may.
Yes.
Do you think it would be wise to wait until this Wednesday's Finance Committee meeting is over?
Well, I don't really see the need. It's not really a financial article. It's just authorization. Again, the money has already been
The project,
appropriated.
Unless we vote to
Right.
take.
Really,
to
if the
authorize.
board's so inclined, I'd like to move forward now, get it to town clerk tomorrow, because they have posting and notice requirements, et cetera.
So moved, Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
Well, I was going to go a little further.
Yep.
Do you want me to rescind that motion, or are you moving forward with a more
Please, if
encompassing
you
one?
would,
I
yeah.
Consider it rescinded.
So the article that Rick talks about is Article 25.
Correct.
Okay. And that article already received the amount of funding required, at least for this and more.
Correct.
This is just an expenditure of those funds. And what else is it, Rick?
Again,
Because
it authorizes this board to acquire the parcels.
Okay.
They would need it
So it's a land
for-
taking.
It's land taking,
We have,
easements,
so this is
whatever.
not a financial article, to your point.
It is not.
Okay, so I'm happy to do that, but I want to float something out there. The Board of Selectmen have a number of articles. And what I'd like to do is kind of chip away at this. This happens to be one of them. And so what I'd like to frame up is a potential for this board to approve the Board of Selectmen articles. And to show that either we're clear, we understand, we want to move forward, we're not going to pass over, Or if somebody wants to hold out something because they're missing information, now's the opportunity to do that. But I wanted to float the idea to see if anybody was adverse to supporting our own articles, and we take a chunk away for future meeting where we're going to have to discuss it. People had the opportunity to review? and be
Absolutely, I support all of them.
Okay. So why don't I do this? It'll take care of Rick's challenge too with the tip.
Okay, great.
So I would move forward, let me just make sure I have that right. It's Article 25, so it's within the Board of Selectmen. I apologize, Rick, I'm just slow on the update.
That's okay. No.
So I'd make a motion that we approve Articles 3, 4, 5. That's right. 11, 12, 13, 17, 18, 20, 23, 24, 25, and 26. Those otherwise noted as Board of Selectmen articles. And then we can chip away at future meetings before town meeting. This takes a block away. And there won't be any question to the FinCom when Mike, the chairman, represents us that these are articles we want to go forward with.
And I'll second that.
And just real quick, Rick, that'll allow you to get done what you need to get done tomorrow.
Absolutely will.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would also vote in favor of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other old business, Bill?
No old business, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. This is something that's been personally bothering me, and I use those terms quite literally, but I wanted to wait to this meeting. I'm asking my colleagues to reconsider a vote that was taken in executive session, and I would like it on the schedule for the next executive session at our next meeting. There were, I believe, 4 things we discussed with the fire department a couple of weeks back, one of which financially affected 2 of our retired members, and in all in good conscience, I want that conversation to continue. If the vote doesn't change, it doesn't change, but what I'd like to is have a follow-up conversation. And I feel after the election that this isn't politicizing anything. This is a very personal issue to me and from the town. And I very much want to have the opportunity to talk to you 2 about that and see if we can't come to a different
Result?
result.
Okay.
Whether or not we want to have the union present or not, or the police chief, to be honest with you, this is really up to this board at this point. We heard from both the chief and the union.
You mean fire chief?
Yes, the
You
fire
said
chief.
police chief.
Oh, I meant fire chief, yeah,
Okay.
fireman, excuse me. So I'll let you decide that,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think either one of them are gonna have a different argument, but at least the 3 of us can have a conversation. So I'll leave that to you, whether or not you want everyone back in the same room again, or just the 3 of us. But I feel very strongly about this, and I would like, I'd like to address it. There's been more and more publicity about firemen being exposed
Cancer.
and getting different types of cancer that they're linking to as an occupational hazard. And I think we're gonna see more and more of that. And I think it's just something that, and I'm very proud of this town because we've supported our firemen dealing and picked up their co-pays and out-of-pocket expenses. But I just think there's a couple of issues dealing with vacation time and things like that that I think we need to take a moral responsibility here.
Okay. Rick, can you please make sure that's on the next agenda?
Sure, the April 23rd.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, you're welcome. And I have no old business as well. Okay. Next agenda item is new business. And the first agenda item, Rick, you read all these? We're gonna vote them individually,
Yes, these are the, excuse me,
so we'll
renewal of
do,
the secondhand license, renewal
And we'll
of
do
the
the pool
pool table
table.
licenses and the bowling alley.
okay. So the first license renewal is Baza Jewelry and Gifts, 196 East Main Street, Central Street Resale, 2 Central Street, Nathan's Jewelers, 157 Main Street, TJ Collectibles, 160 Main Street, and I apologize, the I apologize, I can't pronounce it, Centers, Treasures, and Trinkets, 319 and a half Main Street. Can I have a motion?
Moved?
Seconded.
And I will vote in favor as well. Next one is renewal of pool table licenses for 2018, Fun Zone of Milford, known as Pins, 110 South Main Street, Hoboken Citizens Club, 252 Central Street, And Tran Lucky 9, 119 East Main Street.
Moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second it.
I will vote in favor as well. And the last one is renewal of bowling alley license, Fun Zone of Milford, again known as Pins, 110 South Main Street.
Moved.
Second it.
And I will also vote in favor. Next new business is, and I'm not going to read the whole letter, it's from WMRC. It's their annual fishing derby, which is held at Louisa Lake. They're asking that the lake be put off limits for 24 hours after the lake has been stocked for the children on April 21st. The Department of Massachusetts Fisheries is delivering 500 trout at noon on Friday the 20th. Again, WMRC is asking the town to keep the Louisa Lake off limits for a 24-hour period.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve that.
And I'll second that.
And I as well would vote in favor.
I'm glad they still do that.
Yes.
That's a great event.
I'm sure you'll be there with Caleb.
If he's feeling well, we will be.
And the last one is Gallery Milford doing business as TD's Pub, amendment to the automatic amusement license. It looks like they are looking to, what are they looking to do?
On the back.
We're going to add 2 coin operators.
Oh, sorry about
Yeah,
it.
that's
It's on the
right on the back.
Looking to add 2 pool tables and a jukebox? And
Actually, they currently have 2 of
Two,
those.
no, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, they're
Next
looking-
step, yeah.
adding 2 coin-operated golden, what are those? Rick?
Golden Tee, it's a golf simulator.
Oh, a
machine.
golf simulator. That shows you how much golf I play.
That's the best golf I do
So,
play.
so anyway, they're looking to add 2 coin-operated golden tee, which is, thank you, Will, golf machines.
And Miss Pac-Man.
Mrs. Pac-Man. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
And I will also vote in favor. Okay, any other new business?
No, Mr. Chairman, none.
I do for new business as well. The 3 of us, and I think Rick, we received an email today from Christopher Wilson resigning from the Community Use Board. He recently got elected to the Milford School Committee. I want to congratulate him on that, but obviously he's an appointing authority to that now that he's the school committee member. So he resigned. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Jeremy Kernan. I think for consistency's sake and continuity, and the reason I'm making a motion for Jeremy, among other things, is he actually reached out to this board, I think 2 days after Mr. Wilson did, so the board went with Mr. Wilson just out of fairness. But Jeremy, that was over a year ago, and I reached out to him, and he's still very much interested. And I think many of us in town know Jeremy and Carly. They're very involved, and he would really like to be interested, and he does have a talent bank form in. So I'd like to see him be appointed just out of fairness, and I'm quite confident he'd do a good job.
And what board is this? I'm sorry, what?
School community use,
Oh, okay.
the selectmen get
Yep,
a number of
yep,
appointments
yep,
in the
yep,
school
yep.
committee, and Christopher Wilson was appointed by this board. So that's a vacancy, and I think I'd really like to see Jeremy filled in that seat, because he literally contacted this board honestly 2 days after Mr. Wilson did, and that's why we made the choice we did. And Chris did a great job. We also had received a letter from the Community Use Board that they took a vote showing support for Mr. Kernan.
And we received that letter?
We did, a year ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So prior to me being on.
It was either, yeah, I'm sorry, it was
Okay.
before, it was a year, it must have been a year and a few months ago. Because, yeah, I'm sorry, it was prior to you being on.
Okay.
But again, if you know Jeremy, the family, I think you can be quite confident that he'd serve us well.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Rick, do you know, has anybody shown interest?
Unfortunately, I don't have the talent bank with me.
Okay,
I
okay.
apologize. I do remember Mr. Kernan. I know he has a talent bank application in.
Okay.
I do know that, and Will was correct. I think there was a letter, if I remember correctly,
Yeah.
a year plus ago.
I do recall it now that Will brought it up.
Yeah.
But as far as who else, I don't have that information. I'd have to get it to the board. I don't have that right now.
I'd be happy to second for any further discussion.
Rick, if you could, and I'm fine with it, Will. I'm
Okay.
fine with it. I know the family as well. Not that should make a difference, but if you could just get me a copy of that letter, just so I have it in my file,
Yeah, we can get.
greatly appreciated. So we'll take it to a vote, or?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, I made the motion, so I'm
And I would
supporting
favor.
it.
And I would vote in favor.
Okay.
Great.
Unanimous.
We'll get you a copy.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome, you're welcome.
Well, at least there's not a gap for a long period of time when,
Okay, and we do have some correspondence tonight. We have the police chief's annual license activity report. I don't know if anybody wants to take the time. We've already reviewed it, and what it is, it's a list of employee reports of dispute with customer over food orders, and,
Yeah, nothing new.
yeah, unfortunately, some liquor establishments, and I looked at it over the weekend, there's nothing really, to me, that stands out that's a,
no, it's actually one of the thinner ones we've received. When I want to say there's nothing remarkable in it, and I say that with caution because we've been looking at these a long time. It has some of the traditional things. But what I'm not seeing are some of the trends we had been seeing before. So which leads me to believe that establishments are working harder to manage the flow of people that come into their buildings. It also means to me, because we're talking about not just liquor establishments, but Wendy's and McDonald's, that employees are more mindful of who's using their facilities and whether they may be up to no good. The community, the state, and the country hasn't solved the heroin crisis, so it's not a surprise to me that in this stack of paper, there is a caller reported that a mail was passed out and officers found him with possession of heroin. But I think that's that's not indicative of the location, but more indicative of where we are as a society and the crisis that we're in with heroin. Other than that, I don't see the trending things that would call our attention.
Oh, and as you said, it's one of the thinner reports.
Yeah.
I think what struck me was, first of all, I want to say thank you to the number of businesses that don't have not one
That's a
report
good point.
against them, and there's
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. And then, to a comment that was made earlier, it's great to see the number, or that where it says the employee called the police department, so that the employees are very aware of their surroundings. Thought somebody was doing drugs in the parking lot, so it just goes back to what we talked about at PINS, that the employees are in fact aware of their surroundings and they know what is the right thing to do. But just the number of businesses in this community that have, no incidents at all, I just want to say great job to all of them. And to the businesses that have a few, just keep working hard, because, I did see last year's report. It was my first one, and this one definitely is an improvement. So I want to say great job, so. The next correspondence we have in our packet is the Attorney General's OUI report that we get every year, and the number of establishments.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I want to break with tradition on this. So I've always been professionally suspect at the OUI reports, because the state in its report even puts out a caveat that this is voluntary and not been verified. So it's easy for somebody who's being arrested for OUI to say, oh, the last place I was at was
Such and such.
Bob's.
Yeah.
And they were nowhere near Bob's, because they don't want to get the place they frequent in trouble. So,
We talked about that last year as well.
yeah, so I'm professionally skeptical, and, here we have information that identifies a restaurant and doesn't identify the individual making the claim. I just find that interesting when we think about due process. So the report basically says, Rick, and correct me if you think I might be wrong here, because we actually ask you to send a letter typically, right?
Right, correct.
But we have an individual who's unnamed is claiming XY restaurant. you know, if somebody sees a trend or wants to look for trend data, the state is monitoring the licenses and establishments and OUI data. I just don't know if I want to call out a restaurant's name anytime ever again while I'm here, when in fact the data can't be verified.
No, it's difficult.
We make the business suspect without any due process. And, you know, I've been here a while, and I've been a part of that. So if I'm critical of my participation. I'm rethinking it. And I'd just like to, I think it's important we get the information, see the information, but I don't intend to call out another business's name again without more information. I can't do it.
No, I agree. In the 3 years that I've been on, I have practiced that as well. And I
Feels
think-
uncomfortable.
Well, and I think that we've done and past boards before me, which you've been on, Bill, have made that abundantly clear that it is voluntary, and someone could say that they just left Bob's and really were at Jack's, So it is what it is. It's a voluntary statement. I consider it an FYI that we receive with other municipalities, and that's exactly what I take it as.
Well, you know what else is important is you don't know how many facilities they've been at that evening.
Exactly.
Or that day.
That's why it's,
That could have been the
informally,
first,
it's
that
called
could
the
have been
last
the first
drink
establishment
report.
of 7.
Right.
Right.
But they forgot the other 6 because
You're
of their
right.
condition.
Right, so, you know what, and I wouldn't even ask the chairman to utilize, the town administrator to utilize a stamp on this. That's about where I'm going on this. That's just my thinking, unless the board feels strongly to send this business a letter. I don't have any desire to even send them a letter, or future businesses.
I think the town of Milford has done a pretty good job of.
Yeah, they
dealing
work
with
with people,
Parade ourselves. Very well. Very well.
so that's my thinking.
Okay. All right, and the next order of business is the 4th of July Parade Committee appointments. And thank you for the opportunity to create something we will believe will be an everlasting tradition for the town of Milford. I've talked to town council on the matter of the town back committee, and it was suggested that we create our committee, submit it to the Board of Selectmen to make it official, and then we as a committee can conduct public hearings and get the ball rolling. The list below is a list of members on the committee of the board's review. Ray Ozier, Joe Callery, Renee Callery, Jenny Lyons, Nicole Romiglio, Erin Curley, and Molly Ozier. And with that, I'll make a accept for a motion.
That looks like a fun group. It looks like a group I want to join, but for the purposes of this meeting, I'd be happy to make a motion to support those names which you read.
And I'll second that.
And before I vote in favor of that, I just want to say this is a good example of people in the community that are getting together, that are volunteering their time for a fun event in the town of Milford that can only get better. So
You're right.
I vote in favor as well.
No, and my only hope that the committee continues to grow and they
Yeah.
attract more and more members, because the more members, the more help they'll get. And
Till it gets unwieldy.
Yeah.
There's some number where you cross the threshold.
And we do have an executive session tonight to review the new town council's contract. That requires a roll call.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And can I have a motion? We will not be returning to regular session. Motion for adjournment,
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman?
Seconded?
and I will vote in favor as well. Good night, everybody, and thank you, and have a safe weekend.